Jack and the Beanstalk. Once upon a time there was a boy named Jack who lived in a small cottage with his mother. The only possession they had in the world was a cow named Milky White, whose milk they sold at the market. But one day Milky White stopped giving milk, and Jack's mother told him to sell her so they could get some money for food. The next morning, on his way to the market, Jack met a strange old man who proposed to swap Milky White for a handful of beans. "But they're not just any beans," said the man. "They're magic." Jack knew he had to have them. "If they don't grow, I'll give your cow back and I'll throw in a free bag of cow manure." That sealed the deal. They made the exchange. Once he was around the next bend, the old man let out a woo! He couldn't believe his luck. Ever since he'd eaten those awful beans, he'd had terrible pains in his stomach. He'd been coughing up leaves and shoots had begun to grow out of his ears. When Jack arrived home, he proudly showed his mother those beans and told her of his special adventure and the deal he'd made with the old man. His mother took a look at the beans and then looked at him. "What?" she exclaimed. "How could you be so foolish as to give away Milky White for a handful of beans?" And with that, she threw the beans out the window. To Jack's delight, when he woke the next morning, he'd seen that the beans had grown within the night. They'd formed a beanstalk that climbed up and up and up until it vanished into the clouds. Jack ran to the garden to take a closer look. "I wonder where it is," thought Jack. "I bet I could easily climb and see it." So he took a firm hold and began to climb higher and higher and higher into the sky. At the top, he found himself beside a cobbled road that led to an enormous castle. Jack stood still with his mouth gaping open. Couldn't believe his luck. "You there! Stop!" Jack's were rushing towards him. "Do not go near that castle. A monstrous giant lives in there, and he's stolen many treasures from folk that live in the land. He eats children like you for breakfast." Now, Jack wasn't the brightest boy in the world, and he'd never been in a castle before. So he ignored the woman and continued up the road. When Jack arrived at the castle, he knocked at the door. And it was opened by the biggest, tallest woman Jack had ever seen. She was, in fact, a giantess. Jack cleared his throat. "Good morning, ma'am," he said politely. "Would you be so kind as to spare a poor boy some breakfast?" The giantess had always liked children, so soon Jack was sitting with her at the table, eating porridge out of one of her thimbles. Just as he'd finished his last spoonful, the house began to shake. "Oh no!" cried the giantess. "My husband is home! Quick, hide! If he finds you here, he'll eat you for breakfast! Quick, hide in the oven!" Before Jack could think whether an oven was the best place for him to hide from a very hungry giant, he leapt into the door, shut behind him. The giant thumped into the room and stomped abruptly, sniffing the air, then crying in a voice like thunder, "Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be him alive or be him dead, I'll grind his bones until he's dead." The giant thumped into the room and stomped abruptly. "Fee, fi, fo, fum, be him dead or be him alive, I'll grind his bones to make my bread." "Nonsense," said the giantess. "It must be the man you had for dinner last night." She brought him a plate of roast beef and patted his giant head. Once the giant had finished his meal, he got up and opened the door to an adjoining room. Jack could see through a crack in the oven door that the room was filled with bags of glorious, shining gold. The giant sat down and began to count some of the money until eventually his head began to nod and he started to snore. Jack crept out of the oven, tiptoed past the giant. He snatched a bag of gold and ran as fast as he could to the beanstalk. When he got home, he told his mother of his adventure and proudly showed her his boot. She hugged Jack tightly. Encouraged by his mother's reaction, Jack woke the next morning and climbed the beanstalk again. Once he reached the top, he ran past the woman as she tried to warn the silly boy, went straight to the castle door and knocked. Soon, Jack was sitting at the table while the giantess smiled and watched him eat his porridge. But again, as he finished his breakfast, the house began to tremble. Jack quietly scrambled into the oven. Just as the giant stomped in, the giant bellowed, "Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be him alive or be him dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread." But the giantess chuckled and gave the giant some chicken nuggets. Afterwards, the giant left the kitchen for a moment and came back holding a hen. The giant placed the hen and her nest on the table and said, "Lay." Miraculously, the hen did as she was told and lay an egg made entirely of gold. After patting the hen and smiling at the egg for quite some time, the giant's head began to nod and he started to snore. Quick as a flash, Jack crept out of the oven, grabbed a hold of the hen and the golden egg, and climbed as fast as he could down the beanstalk. When he got home, he proudly showed his mother the giant hen, and she marveled at the magnificent solid gold egg. The next morning, Jack was up the beanstalk before the sun had even risen. Once again, as Jack was eating his porridge, the house began to shake, and Jack climbed into it. The giant came in, bellowed something about an Englishman, and ate his lamb wrap. Then he got up and left, returning to the room with a beautiful harp. The giant put the harp on the table and said, "Son." At once, the golden harp came to life, and began to sing beautifully. It sang until the giant's head began to nod, and once again he began to snore. Jack crept out of the oven and snatched the harp from in front of the sleeping giant. But as he did, the harp cried out, "Master! Master!" And the giant instantly awoke. Jack ran as fast as he could back to the beanstalk. With the giant close behind, he scrambled down quickly, and when he reached the bottom, his mother grabbed an axe and hacked at the beanstalk. "Bring me the axe!" Until it came tumbling down. The terrifying giant came crashing down with it, never taking any injury or steal from anyone, ever again. Scared out of his wits, Jack promised his mother he would never make any silly market deals ever again. But one day, on his way to the market to sell his golden eggs and his harp, Jack met another strange old man who made him an irresistible offer. In exchange for his harp, Jack became the proud new owner of a horse the old man assured him could